Hi, and welcome back to The Hot Seat. I'm your host, Nora El-Maliki. Today we're lucky enough to have Eric Jansen on the show. He's the creator, host, and co-producer of KALW's Out in the Bay, gay radio from San Francisco. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Eric.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, on your website, outinthebay.com, you and your co-host describe the show as a blend of oral history, journalism, and provocative conversation, and I found that really fascinating. So you're the creator of the show, which has been going on for 8.5 years now. And before that, you worked in public radio for many years and were exposed to so many different formats. So what did you feel was missing or needed in public radio, or maybe in your own life, that Out in the Bay now fulfills?
Well, I was actually, before I created the show, I was working on another public radio show, talk show on KQED, Forum, very popular show with Michael Krasny as a producer. And I thought, why isn't there a show like this that has, intelligent, analytical, interesting conversations about the reality of gay life, especially here in the Bay Area.
Right.
So that's why I thought, well, it's time to create it. And so I pitched it to a couple of stations, and KALW finally said yes.
That's great. So it is public radio, which is often funded from various sources. So how is Out in the Bay funded?
Well, we are truly dependent on community support. We're an independent production. We're not a staff production of KALW. So they provide studio time and airtime for us, but they don't provide any financial support at all, nor does NPR. So it's a weird sort of hybrid,
Right.
but there's a lot of independent shows like that. So we get a little bit of underwriting from commercial sponsors who get a thank you, but it's not an advertisement because it's non-commercial.
Right,
And that's fairly rare, and so we rely on community support. We have various fundraisers from time to time.
Right, that's more of a sort of a work of passion. So why did you feel that radio was the best sort of medium to further your mission and to enlighten people to the realities of the gay community?
Well, radio has been part of my life for a long time. My mom used to work for a KPFA radio station in Berkeley, so I had radio in the house since I was a kid. But over the years, I've discovered radio has been around for a long time. And when TV came along, they thought, oh, radio's going to die. Well, radio didn't die. People still listen to radio. Even with the internet, there's a lot of one of the wonderful things about radio is that people can listen to it while they're doing something else, and it's an intimate medium. You sort of, as you're listening, and you're not, in some ways, I think, people might feel confronted if they actually have to talk to a gay person in their life. But if they're just listening in, they are learning and being entertained in a way that's non-threatening, and they can sort of feel more. It's a very intimate medium. That's I don't know how else to describe it.
Right, it is.
But another thing I want to say about that is, back in I guess it was the 1980s or so, when FM was really booming and AM was pretty much dead, a lot of religious conservatives bought up cheap AM radio stations all across the country, and they use that as part of their way to build a network.
Right.
So it's sort of as a political tool. So as gay and lesbian people, I think we need to have some airtime too, and so that's another part of the reason. I'd love to get the show on other stations around the country. So if you got some ideas on stations, let me know. Contact me, outinthebay.com.
Do it. So what's some of the most notable feedback that you've gotten about the show?
One of the things I'm really pleased with is going out and about in the community and meeting people who I tell them what I do for work, and they say, oh, I listen to your show. And these aren't gay people usually, because KALW is a mainstream station, we're on and people just happen to be listening in. And I'm really pleased that people are telling me they're tuning in, and they're just because they find it interesting.
Right.
And it's in the same way I listen to the Tavis Smiley Show, which gives news from an African-American perspective. I'm listening to a world I'm not part of, but I'm learning. And in the same way, people are listening to our show. I think that's great. I love it.
Yeah. So just to satisfy my own curiosity, what was the most interesting interview you did?
Well, there have been a couple. One of the most difficult interviews I did was with Judy Shepard, Matthew Shepard's mother. She was in town a couple of years ago. She'd just written a book about his murder and how that affected her life and her family. And she's a naturally shy person, and she doesn't like the media. She said she's an introvert, but she was forced by this terrible tragedy to go out and become an advocate. And so it was just, it was not a treat. It was an honor to meet her and to have her share her story, even though she doesn't really want to. And she was instrumental. I mean, she was really powerful in bringing the hate crimes legislation and finally getting that passed through Congress. So she's become an advocate for us and an ally out of this tragedy. She's made some sense out of it.
That's really powerful. So we're running out of time here, but I just want to say that you're doing really great work here, and I look forward to seeing how Out in the Bay grows. So what's the best way for people to listen to the show, and where can they find it?
I would say the best thing to do is start at our website, outinthebay.org. We have a favorites page where you can hear some of our favorite past interviews, including the Judy Shepard one, a great one with Liberace, and a whole bunch more, John Waters, Ang Lee, and you can also find out how to listen in all sorts of other ways, free podcasts, the whole
Great.
bit.
Well, thanks for joining me and the lovely Eric Jansen on The Hot Seat. I'm your host, Nora Al-Maliki.